Ways to use your jelly prints, both the ones you love and the ones you don't, the mistakes. So I'm going through my jelly prints, and when I was crafting with my friend, I noticed that she had some leaf stamps and some flower stamps that I wanted. I had all my stamps there, she had all of hers, and we decided that we should share. You all don't have to own every stamp and every stencil. So I decided that I was going to stamp some of the stamps of hers that I really liked onto my jelly prints, especially the ones that, I can't see myself using them for anything. Now, I love fall leaves and the colors of fall leaves and stuff. And when I saw she had a set of leaf stamps, I went to town. I selected all my jelly prints that I have organized in my box by color, the ones that would represent it. At some point in time, I will fussy cut these a little bit, leaving a little bit of areas and using them in a collage art journal piece. So here I'm going through my green stash, and what a lovely autumn color. This one actually isn't a jelly print. This is the paper that I brayered off while doing some jelly prints. Don't throw those away. They become ideal. A lot of my jelly prints are either printed on deli paper or on a sheet of paper from a Reader's Digest. I'm also going to recycle our latest foam books and use that to brayer off onto, and then recycle for using on collage pieces for flower petals, or like you see here. So just going through the variety of them, picking out ones for certain stamps that I've selected, and I am going to town for the leaf picture, for the leaf stamps. There's some gold papers and some that have a little bit of shimmer or iridescent medium put into it that are going to, when they're together, I think are going to be amazing. Most of these I will be cutting, leaving a little bit of a border around so that you pick up the color. I'm just doing a couple on each page so I get the full autumn splendor. I'm using black StazOn, but you can use any permanent ink such as archival. Switching to a pumpkin stamp, and I have this brayered off jelly print. I'm not even sure what it is. Wheat stalks that I think I can use in a collage piece at some point in time. Kind of need to know your style, what you would like. If I find I really like this stamp and I'm using this in a collage piece and I want more of it, I know that it's a stamp that's worth me buying. So a quick view of some of the stamps on the jelly prints. A lot of my jelly prints I've added iridescent medium to, so you have a little bit of glimmer and shimmer in them. And I'm putting them back into the jelly print box of mine under the color, just to keep them. When I need them for collaging, I will go back. Then I decide that, hey, I can use my Versamark and do some embossing on the same jelly prints. So I'm using black fine, and I'm putting it on several of them because I found with my Ranger heat tool, it takes a while to heat up. And by having several ready to go, I actually saved time because once it heated up, things melted fairly quickly. So I'm positioning these a little further apart because I have the idea of using these as the first layer on an ATC. So I'm trying to space them to accommodate that. You can see an ATC card there underneath that I'm checking the sizing on periodically. So I'm embossing, doing the heat part for a lot of these as I go. I decided to use one of my homemade stamps to emboss. This was a die from that we cut using fun foam. Pressing the embossing ink on there, the Versamark, and again embossing onto blue paper and white paper with white embossing powder and silver embossing powder and black. These will be taken and put onto Christmas cards. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to use these? Will I use these? So again, you have an idea of those projects that you want to do. And by dealing with all the embossing and all the Versamark stuff at one time, you are also saving some time. And you're eliminating one more step. At the end of this video, I do show you making one simple ATC card once you have the jelly print and the embossing done. Finishing up the card is going to be a much quicker process. So here I'm heat embossing some of these flowers on this brayer off paper. And there's the ATC, and I'm just putting it on there and cutting around it. And I want to make sure I leave enough room for that one, so I'm positioning it. So with Mod Podge or gel medium, I'm using Mod Podge for these. I find that is effective and it's much cheaper. Just applying a layer of Mod Podge onto the ATC that I've cut out of cardboard, recycled packaging, I think. And I'm trying to line up this jelly print. I'm putting it on, trimming it off. I didn't cover a corner, so I'm just piecing a piece in there. Now that is my type A type personality, but when you're collaging and you put a layer on top and below, when all's said and done, nobody's going to notice that. So it just adds another dimension to it. So I'm just drawing the Mod Podge from at the top on the, trying to use an acrylic block to kind of flatten it. I have a little brayer, but I didn't have it with me at this time. But that is often really good for getting out all the air bubbles and adhering for collaging. So I'm putting StazOn around the edges, again, to get rid of the white that's there. And then I have the idea that I can get a little bit more in there. Oh, I'm not doing that right now. I'm adding some hearts. This says follow your art. And I thought I'll put some little stamps that I have with little hearts that come with different stamp sets. And so I've gone through all my collections and pulled out all the hearts and just embossing some of those just to add a little bit more in some of the spaces. Here's where I decide to put embossing, use the Versamark on the edges, and just, here I scoop it on, but I realized that it would be much better if I got the Versamark some places I didn't want, to just take the card and dip it, touch the embossing powder. Because I did get the Versamark in a place where I didn't want it. So I'm using a brush to brush off the embossing powder before I use the heat tool. So in further ATCs, I just dipped it in instead of spooning it over, and I kind of got away from that. And I really like how embossing the edges, it kind of sealed the paper. That I collaged on there. So follow your art. Very simple ATC for a pocket letter. Here's another ATC I did in a similar fashion. This one's just stamped on a jelly print. Another follow your art with embossing powder and black along the edges, and joy, a different background. Now go to your stash of jelly prints and start using them. Be sure to hit subscribe and you won't miss any of my upcoming videos. As always, I love to read your comments.